Well, it's been more than 12 years since over 60 people were killed in deadly xenophobic attacks across the country. Hundreds more were injured. Thousands fled their homes. They were forced to live in makeshift refugee camps, community halls, police stations. Despite that shameful chapter in our recent history, foreigners continue to be targeted in South Africa. In recent weeks, foreign-owned shops were vandalized in Durban. Let's speak now to Batini Zaza Gibasha, chairperson of the African Diaspora Union based in Durban. Good evening and thank you very much for your time. Could you just update us on the recent seemingly anti-foreigner attacks on shops in Durban? Have things calmed down?
Hello there, Sally, and hello there, eNCA viewers. It is really sad that all of this is happening in townships. No, it hasn't come down, and it's going to be a long way until we stop seeing such attacks on foreigners by South Africans.
Why are they seen as a threat? You know, we played Kailihle Khumalo interviewed a Nigerian woman who started a dressmaking business, and she's not only found a living for herself, but she's employed a lot of South Africans. Why do you think foreigners are seen as an economic threat as opposed to an economic opportunity to partner?
Now, if you look at it closely, Sally, most foreigners that get targeted, I'm going to call them migrants. Most migrants that get targeted are those migrants that are in the low-income areas, in locations, in areas where South African citizens are struggling to make ends meet themselves. Now, we have to understand that the problem starts at the root. First of all, South Africa has a too liberal migration system. Now, we remember that the reforms were drawn by Ambosini, who was from IFP, and we remember that he was a migrant himself. So in somehow, the reforms in this country favor migrants, and now they favor them at the expense of the citizens. And it's really painful that when we find people that are trying to change such reforms so that they remedy the anger that citizens have, we often then call it xenophobic. But the xenophobic attacks are way past us. Now, it's just hunger attacks. South African people are frustrated because of the number of migrants that are in this country, because of our porous borders, uncontrolled migration system. Our system is very, very bad. It's actually way out. And these are the root things, the things on the root that cause such anger from South Africans. And then it's turned towards migrants. Migrants in upper class areas don't suffer such attacks, but it's the ones that are in low income classes that find themselves attacked because of the frustration that South African people are actually facing.
So you say
financial frustration.
You say our policies are too liberal. So give me an example of where you think the policy on migrants coming into South Africa is too liberal at the expense of South Africans. Just give me an example so I can understand what you mean.
For instance, I'm going to tell you about countries like Zambia. In Zambia, you need to have a seriously scarce skill in Zambia to be employed. In Botswana, in Uganda, to name just a few countries, even in Ghana. Now, these are countries that put their citizens first. South Africa, they don't. In South Africa, you find a waitress being a migrant. In fact, more than 80% of waitresses in the informal sector are migrants.
Can I just jump in there? I just want to jump in there because we too have a scarce skills list, but we also have very porous borders. So quite a lot of foreign migrants are undocumented here in South Africa, and that seems to be something else we don't seem able to control. What do you think we need to do? Because we don't have good border control. Do you think it starts there?
Sally, it starts with the Freedom Charter, the foundation of our Constitution. What country in the world says that, for instance, South Africa says South Africa belongs to all those who live in it. And it justifies the porousness of their borders. And when we argue our stance on migrants being abused or Home Affairs not doing their jobs on time and granting migrants permits, that is the first thing that we use. You have promised anybody that is in this country, whether legal or illegal, that South Africa belongs to all those who live in it. Now, that first is the problem. Secondly, we have apart from our porous borders, we have policies in South Africa that are just not implemented at all. And I think the South African government does not care about South Africans and automatically ends up not caring about Africans as a whole. Because now when you allow them to come in nilly-willy, you're subjecting them to the angers. And when you leave your people unhappy and unsatisfied and unfully serviced in their own country, you're then allowing anger. And that anger will be immediately subjected to the person that the person on the street sees as a threat to their means to eating. Now, problems are with our constitution, number one. And hence I've said that our reforms on migration were written by a migrant himself. And therefore, they highly favor migrants and at the expense of a South African. It is very painful for especially us who are advocating for migrants to look at this and then see that this will not end not simply because South Africans are xenophobic, but because the South African government is failing dismally in protecting their own people.
Very thought-provoking. Thank you very much for sharing your views this evening. Batini Zaza Gebasha, chairperson of the African Diaspora Union based in Durban.